I want to explore the inevitability and necessity of forgiveness in practical terms. And to do that, let's look at some of the geometrics or implications of forgiving and not forgiving. So the first thing is to understand what a lack of forgiveness is. So when something happens and we say that's wrong, that's bad, that should not happen, what we do is we reject something that is. So we reject a part of reality. Something has happened that we do not accept. We do not receive or acknowledge. We exclude, separate from, and reject it. Now, this only happens when we cannot love and accept the parts of ourselves that correlate with this behavior. So here's how it plays out. So let's say that I will not, sincerely, not just going through the motions of speaking the words, but I will not forgive some person I see on the news for raping a child. I will not forgive this person. And so there's a couple of different implications of that. Because our brain focuses with integrity, what it's also saying is that I will not accept, love, or forgive the part of me that is capable of doing that. Because every human being has a vast field of possibility. There's what's actually happened, but I could have done this, I could have done that, etc. So when we reject, judge, and withhold love and forgiveness from a part of reality that's out there, we're doing the same inside. Meaning we're saying that if I was ever like this, I wouldn't be loving or forgiving myself either. And often, if we cannot forgive, typically the situations where we cannot forgive are when someone participated in a lot of hurt. Let's say I was 5 years old and raped, and then hit when I told about the rape, and then no one believed me, but people in school humiliated me, and I didn't have a single protector. Well, the general statistical impact of that kind of behavior on a 6-year-old is they hate themselves. They feel worthless. They feel valueless. They feel alone. They feel humiliated. They feel helpless. Now, in a culture that doesn't teach us how to love, a 6-year-old cannot love that part of themselves. If you ask a 6-year-old to do what no grown-up around them, no adult is doing, you must love this part of yourself that you feel hatred for and humiliated and small. You must feel it, and you must love and accept that part of yourself. The 6-year-old is overwhelmed, wants nothing to do with it. I can't love that part of myself. I have to tell it to go away because it's not being loved by the community that I depend on for survival and security. I can't love this part of myself. I've got to suppress it and reject it. It's my only chance of surviving and feeling secure in a community that hates this part of me as evidenced by its cruelty and lack of intervention. So the 6-year-old at that point hates themselves. And hating oneself creates tremendous suffering. Loathing oneself creates tremendous suffering. Believing you're worthless creates tremendous suffering. Now, when all those sufferings are added up, it can feel, to an emotionally illiterate human being, way too painful to feel. It's like, that's too much to feel. I want it to go away. I want that part of me to just disappear. Well, that telling a part of ourselves to disappear is not love. It's fear, it's denial, it's punishment for the punished. It's what was so cruel in many of our childhoods, is the parent punishing us and then us crying out and communicating in some way that it hurts that we're being punished, that this is how it feels to be punished or neglected or lied to or whatever it is. And then we're punished for communicating that we were punished or communicating how it feels. Your parent hits you, you say, "Stop hitting me," and then they hit you again for telling them not to hit you. And so it's like, and I feel helpless around this. I feel sad, and I don't want to feel helpless. I don't want to be lost in those feelings, so I push those feelings away. I cannot love the part of myself that was raped. Now, if I cannot love the part of me that was raped, I cannot fully go in and feel the feelings. I'm pushing them away, which ensures that they don't heal, which creates a certain amount of helplessness. Now, I'm sick with self-hatred that I can't heal. Well, the person that triggered this event, particularly if in the morals or memes of the day they are wrong, they raped a 6-year-old. Well, if you as the 6-year-old cannot forgive you as the 6-year-old, and you as the 30-year-old cannot forgive yourself for once being 6-year-old, for being so helpless, for not knowing how to defend yourself, if you cannot forgive yourself for that, meaning feel that, be present for that, reconnect with that, then it is mathematically impossible to forgive the person who caused or who triggered or who witnessed the event that is unforgivable. Meaning, if you can't forgive yourself, the event is unforgivable to you. And it is impossible and even irrational to forgive someone who precipitated an unforgivable experience if the person having the unforgivable experience can't be forgiven. The person who created or precipitated the unforgivable experience cannot be forgiven either. If, on the other hand, you are able to go back to that 6-year-old and say, "I love you and I forgive you," and that rape was not your fault, and telling someone about it wasn't your fault, and it wasn't your fault that no one was there to stick up for you, and it wasn't your fault that the other kids at school humiliated you and teased you rather than supported you. And it wasn't your fault that you've been emotionally illiterate. But you're doing wonderful. I love you, 6-year-old little girl. And there's nothing wrong with you. I love you. I care for you. I want to be with you. I'll listen to you. I want to send you in meditation all the things that you ask for and want to feel great. I love you and I forgive you for being 6 years old with all those limitations of being 6 years old. Well, once you can heal and forgive the victim inside, you're saying the victim is lovable. So now it is possible to say that the one who caused the thing is also lovable. And so self-forgiveness opens up the doorway to forgiving others. Now let's look at a couple of other implications. So you can think of the natural state of things being flow. Water flows to a lower point. Wind blows through the air entirely. It doesn't, have boundaries. Light permeates all space, right? But in order to create distinction in consciousness, you have to block out some of that flow. You have to block out some of that energy. And one of the things if you imagine yourself like a sieve, and it's just going through and going through and going through, energy is passing through you. And as energy passes through you, as a general rule, it enlivens you. It's energy connecting and awakening and feeding, etc., whether it's water or air or light or warmth. Energy tends to feed us. So in the natural state of things, everything passes through. All things change, all things pass through. But if you have a judgment and a thing that this is unforgivable, when that thing moves near you, it will get hooked in your filter of rejection. So it's kind of like if you can imagine you're a grate and a river is flowing through you. If you say, I'm not going to let any logs go through me, right? So the river brings us logs, and so we have to block them, and they pile up and pile up. But there's only one or two things you can do. You can either let the logs pile up and go into a battle with what comes down the river, or you can just let them through. Now, as soon as you let the logs through with the water, they're not in your life. They've gone on past. And so as a consciousness, as an energy, whatever you get fixated on, go into reaction to, defend against, reject, judge, call unforgivable, and refuse to acknowledge and respect, whatever we do that with, is by definition stuck in our grate. And it will stay stuck in our grate until we let it through the grate. There's nowhere else for it to go in that flow of energy. We block and judge what we cannot love and cannot bear to feel or accept inside. I can't bear to remember what it was like to be 6 years old. That's unforgivable. I don't want to feel it. So then the person who caused that or participated in that in some way is also an unforgivable person, someone to be feared. To be free of something, we must let it go. Well, that's obvious. If you want to move around and you've got a lead weight and you're holding on to the lead weight, to be free of the lead weight, you have to let the lead weight go. So in setting it free of the judgment and the attachment, because whatever you hold on to controls you. I can hold on to a tree and say, I'm not going to let this go, but the tree isn't going to let me go either. It's not like I can walk around and undo my life while not letting the tree go, which brings into focus another interesting fact, which is that forgiveness or lack of forgiveness is a kind of prison where we say, no matter what, I'm not going to let you out of this prison. You are this. It's a prison of the mind, perhaps, but you are this, and that's how I see you. And I'm not going to let you out of this forever because I'm not going to let myself out of it. I'm not going to let myself move on and let go and transform, etc. So I'm not going to let you do that either. Well, most prisoners in a prison serve their time and then move on. That's the time they don't let themselves go because you're judging them and all that. But they serve their time and they move on. The person that spends the most time in prison is the prison staff, is the warden. So it's something to keep in mind. Usually what is unforgivable, there's a lot of attachment and rejection. So we have to remember and recreate with a fair amount of energy all the things that were wrong and why they were wrong, etc., etc. Forgiveness is to allow love. To deny love takes energy. It's like light. If you think of love as an algorithm of sustainable, conscious fun and well-being in an ecological framework that acknowledges all parts of the framework in a collaborative dance. If you think of love as that, you have to block out our connectivity to all kinds of things in order to instead focus on or deal with what's unlovable. You have to block that out. It's all love except this and except that. You have to put energy and remember those things, or you dissolve back into the interconnected source, the interconnected consciousness with which we are all inextricably connected. So we don't forgive others when we cannot love what was induced in ourselves, which means that we cannot forgive and love ourselves if we cannot. There's some area we cannot forgive and love ourselves if we cannot forgive the other. And if we cannot forgive ourselves, we cannot love ourselves. If we cannot love ourselves, the parts of us that are unloved regress, become hostile, deteriorate, causing more problems, which then, if we can't love those problems, will cause more problems until we learn how to love ourselves. Then the parts that we love grow, heal, move towards more conscious levels of fun, and are more and more easy to love. It's very easy to love the lovable parts. It can be very hard to love the difficult parts. And so we will stay stuck until we love the parts that we don't love, so that they can grow and change and become more and more lovable.